Tammy Cortez. I am the chair for the General Ledger Product Advisory Group for this year. And just a couple of things I wanted to let you know about the PAG, as we like to call ourselves. And we were reminded the other day that we needed to explain what the PAG stood for to some folks who are new to Alliance. So we are your product advisory group. Our PAG represents the General Ledger, commitment control, cash management and treasury, asset management, and the financial reporting tools such as Envision and PeopleSoft Query. Wanted to let you know there is a session tomorrow morning from 10:30 to 11:30. It's titled Let's Talk About Journals. And we may have some Oracle strategists in that session who will be listening to some of the things that we would like to see as enhancements to the journal process. So if you're here and are interested in that, be sure and attend that session. Please either silence or turn off all of your electronic devices. And also, if you are not familiar with the General Ledger PAG listserv, that is where our community goes to talk to each other, get ideas, share ideas, and also that is the place where you can request any type of enhancements to any of the products into the enhancement tracker for the PAG to consider, review and consider. And those enhancements will typically, once they're voted on by the community, will be submitted to Oracle for consideration and any updated versions. At this point, I'd like to introduce our speakers. So I'm going to flip my papers around here. We have Gilbert Morales with Florida International University and Carlos Flores with Florida International University. And they're going to be presenting on payroll transfers within financial management solutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy. Can everybody hear me back there? Good afternoon, everyone. Once again, my name is Gilbert Morales. Gentleman seated to my right is Mr. Carlos Flores. We thank you for selecting us in your agenda, so we're looking forward to seeing if you have any questions at the end of the presentation. As Tammy mentioned, this is payroll transfers within the Financial Management Solutions, session 33643, room 303, just to make sure. A little bit of background on myself and Mr. Flores. I am a technical analyst at Florida International University within the University Technology Services. I have over 10 years of experience with PeopleSoft, General Ledger, commitment control of my modules. I currently have an MIS degree from FIU. Mr. Flores, he's the Executive Director of Operations and Systems. He has over 13 years of experience with PeopleSoft. He holds his computer science degree from FIU and a certified payroll professional. He has brought most of the functional attributes that we needed for this process. So with working with him over the last 2 or 3 years before we worked on this process, he brought in tremendous value on this. A quick agenda that we have. I'm going to talk a little bit about the FIU profiles, a little background of us and what we have, and Mr. Flores will then continue with the solution overview as to why we have the payroll transfers within the financial system. Then we'll discuss about the workflow approval, and then I'll take over and show you guys how the payroll transfer is created at FIU. And then we'll leave it for Q&A at the end. All right, Florida International University is located in Miami, Florida. It's one of 11 universities in the state system. That is a picture of our library that's nestled in between all those beautiful palm trees, and the whole campus is covered with palm trees. So if you're in the area, please visit us. We're about 15 miles away from South Beach, which is a plus. We opened our doors in 1972 with 5,667 students. Currently, we have 11 colleges, including a new medical school, opened fall 2009. #1 in the nation in awarding bachelor's and master's degrees for Hispanic students. 60,000 total enrollment fall 2013, and the university 2013-2014 operating budget exceeded $918 million. Well, in 2004, we implemented release 8.4 PantherSoft in view of our mascot, Golden Panther, called it PantherSoft, to replace the legacy system. We rolled out financials and campus solution. You can see the listing of the different modules within the two. In 2008, we upgraded campus solutions to version 9.0. 2009, upgraded financials to version 9.0 and implemented the grant suite. 2012, implemented HR 9.1 suite, listing of different modules that we have in there. And shortly afterwards, in March of 2012, we rolled out the payroll transfer process within financials. Now, Mr. Flores will discuss the process overview.
So this is a philosophical discussion. What is a payroll transfer, right? Is it just a journal entry? We run a detailed ledger. So one of the things that you have to think about is exactly what are we trying to accomplish. So by definition, a payroll transfer is a movement of payroll expenses from one funding source to another. The problem with the journals is they're aggregated, right? So they don't have detailed information. So who is it for? You don't have employee ID or employee record to track that level of detail. So, you know, as Gilbert mentioned, we've had financials for quite a while, and we recently implemented HR. So we do have HR accounting line in HR, but which feeds through the messaging delivered native functionality to HR accounting line and financials. But as many of you may know, if you deal with grants, there is no statute of limitation as far as how far back you can go back and transfer, you know, the specific funding sources. So one of the things that we took into account is when we implemented ADP prior to PeopleSoft, we switched from a summarized ledger to a detailed ledger. And because of that, when we were feeding the accounting entries into HR accounting line, we also developed what's called the payroll detail report. So you can go ahead and every pay period or a range of pay periods, you can report on the specific employee-specific expenses tied to specific funding sources. There's an added complexity that we had, which was we had ADP, then we went to PeopleSoft, and then soon thereafter, 6 months after we went live, we had a chart of accounts project that changed our entire accounting structure. So what we essentially ended up with was in our financials HR accounting line, we had 3 account structures. And when you go back to do a transfer of expenses, you have to account for that difference in accounting. So because all the data resided in financials, we thought that the best design that we could use was to leave it in HR accounting line and build something on top of it, which is a payroll transfer bolt-on. So what we're going to do is explain some of the different roles that we have. So there is a payroll transfer originator, which is the person actually initiating the cost transfer. There's a reviewer, and there's an expense manager. How many people here deal with grants? Oh wow, okay. How many of you are entertained dealing with grants? Same group of people. So when you look at the different roles, is we have different buckets, right? That really cannot overlap or cross. So we have different roles for the project-specific part of it, which is post-award grant manager that manages the expense, whether whether you're getting a debit or a credit. And believe it or not, from a grant perspective, you sometimes don't want to get a credit, right? From an accounting perspective, you would say, I always want a credit, I get more money back. But that is usually not the case when you talk about grants. So we do have different roles. This is just some of the actions that we'll be getting into, but you can say submit. And standard AWE functionality as far as approve, deny, pushback, and sendback are some of the features that allow you to, in the approval process, for whatever reason, go back to the originator, make some adjustments, and then resubmit the transfer and approval. So this is where, I guess this is the heart of the design of this bolt-on, is depending on your role, and whether you are going from department to department, department to project, project to project, or project to department, those are all the combinations, is the different roles, whether you're getting a debit or a credit, you would either get the transaction as an approver, or you will get the transaction as a reviewer. For the most part, if you're getting a credit on your department, non-project department, then you will be a reviewer. If you're on a project, regardless whether it's a debit or a credit, you need to approve that transaction. Okay? So this matrix basically it shows you the different scenarios of from and to, and how the different roles interact as far as approvals. And that's really critical when you're moving, funds around, specifically if they're restricted or not restricted, department or project. I don't expect you to see this one, but just to visualize it, if you print the PowerPoint, this is the path of a department. So remember, it can go from department to department or department to project. Every time there's a project involved, whether it's a debit or a credit, then it goes through a different approval path. One of the things that's very important that we incorporated, because of grant-specific requirements, you have to do the transfers in a timely manner. So if for whatever reason we also have another system called effort reporting. So if the PI at the end of the semester is certifying effort on a specific grant, and they realize that the effort might slightly be off, then they will go ahead and initiate a transfer. But if the expense has exceeded 90 days from the